we are in a cyber war. We are in World War III. You're in a completely different mindset when you're in war. You're thinking differently, you're acting differently, you're paranoid, you're concerned. The problem we have in the United States, we have peacetime mentality. We're acting and behaving like we trust people. When links come in and people click on it, that's peacetime mentality. But the reality is, if we knew we were at war and we had wartime mentality and a link came in, we wouldn't even think of clicking it.
Who says tech can't be human?
What's going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to the show. With me, I have someone on this episode that has paved the way for people like myself, this quote unquote area and genre of cybersecurity influencers. But just like myself, this person, my guest for this episode, isn't just someone that talks about cybersecurity. They have the chops, they have the background, and I would consider them a triple OG in the game. My special guest for this episode is Dr. Eric Cole. Dr. Eric Cole is the CEO and founder of Secure Anchor Consulting. Eric, when you and your team reached out to us on Instagram, I was like, Eric? But I'm glad that we made this happen. I'm glad that I finally get a chance to speak to you because I've been following you for a long time. Most importantly, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, my friend, and I'm looking forward to some fun conversation.
Yes, sir. So let's start way back, way back. When I first got into cybersecurity, you were already a prolific figure in the industry. I think that you were at SANS at the time. But when I was doing my research for this episode, I saw that, not only were you at SANS for quite a while, but your career transcends just that, what I knew. Like, you worked at the CIA, DoD, contractors. So I want to start back in the very beginning. What was cybersecurity when you first learned about it? Was it hacking? Was it phone freaking? How'd you get into this crazy world?
Yeah. So I actually started at the CIA in 1990. It was mid-January 1990. And just sort of to put things in perspective, because we forget how far we've come, the World Wide Web wasn't actually invented until 92. Like, you didn't have a website. So the CIA did not have a website in 1990. And remember, invented in 1992 means the web really didn't become mainstream until 94, 95.
Right.
Google. It wasn't incorporated until 1998. I mean, that's crazy, like 8 years later. So, when I got involved, the internet was basically a Next computer. If you remember, Next was the spin-off company that Steve Jobs did when Apple basically kicked him out. So the Next computer, it was a Next computer. And remember, CIA headquarters, so we had to have a special area on class and everything else. And it was basically all command line. It was just command line, news groups, and it was all about research and sharing information. It was basically universities and companies were on there. I mean, there was no business. There was no e-commerce. There was none of that. And how I got involved is I was working, and this is all stuff I can talk about now, but I worked in an area in the CIA called COVCOM, or Covert Communications. And in 1990, it was all RF. It was all radio frequency devices, closed circuit RF. So when you going in and had to exchange information with somebody in a covert manner, you had to be within 50, 60, 70 feet, which, as you can imagine, is high risk. Because if you and me are not supposed to be associated with each other, we're not supposed to be meeting, any connection between me and you could hurt you, hurt me, put us at risk. And we had to get within 50 feet of each other. And we had to do that weekly. From a pattern matching, observing perspective, that's huge risk. Because they're going to go in and say, okay, how come every Friday Eric and Ron are in the same coffee shop? I mean, that's how this was Cold War. Right? 1990 Cold War, Russia, US did not get along at all. And we're talking about using the internet, right? Could we use the internet? Because the internet allows two people to cross channels, but they could be anywhere in the world. So I could be in a news group. A professor from Russia could just happen to be in the same news group. And that would not look normal. Nobody's monitoring that. Nobody was tracking it in 1990. So we're like, what if we sort of use the internet for doing this? And I'm sitting in a meeting and I asked a question that basically changed the trajectory of my life. Because in 1990, when I started at the CIA, I was doing AI programming. So I wasn't in cybersecurity. I was actually programming, and I actually built a system that actually would help track and monitor terrorists, and actually using AI predictive modeling, neural networks, rule-based systems, and actually got a lot of awards from the DCI and others for doing that. So I was not a cyber guy in 1990, but I was doing the communication area with AI programming, and I asked a question in a meeting that changed my life. And this is where I come up with my phrase that I live by, which is smart people know the right answer. Brilliant people ask the right question. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I asked a brilliant question, which was, okay, we're moving systems to the internet. How do we know they're secure? How do we know they're safe? How do we know that there's not somebody watching or monitoring us? And in the government, if you ask questions, and most businesses are the same, if you ask a question that nobody knows the answer to, you're volunteering to solve it.
Absolutely.
So they basically said, okay, Eric, you're now a team of one. You're going to be a 4-month special project. We're going to give you some money, and you're going to go in and show us how to create secure systems on the internet. And back then, you had software development life cycles. Like you had ways to develop software. You had the waterfall model. You had the spiral model. RAD was just coming on the scenes in 1990. So I figured I was basically going to create a software development life cycle for security of basically how can you build secure systems guaranteed. Testing, verification, create the test. What I quickly realized, which we all realize today, is you can't prove a system is secure. It's impossible. So that's when I embarked on, okay, the only way to prove a system is secure is to try to break into it, is to try to exploit it. And that's when I began a career of being a professional hacker, where basically I was given a lab, and I still today, you give me hexadecimal packet decodes, and I can read it like it's English, because that's just what I've done for like 30 years. People think I'm crazy, which I probably am, but like packet decodes, protocols, ports, services, exploitation, and develop my model where it's basically you need visible IPs, open ports, weaknesses in servers, exploitation, create backdoors, covert operations, where I develop basically my offensive mindset that has really sort of set the stage for the rest of my career.
I love that story. I love it because that's, I feel like in the best ways, people often have the opportunity thrown in their lap. It's almost like the hand of God, ex machina. When you want something, like I want to know how this thing is, how these computer systems are not going to be hacked or how they're going to be secure. Someone says, "Well, here you go. Here's the answer, but the answer is within you." I think that's powerful. And what I also loved about the story is the focus on the fundamentals. I talk about it all the time with my family, people that I mentor. I have a mentoring session tomorrow with a young 22-year-old, and I was talking to him about all of the fundamentals. If you can understand how your web browser speaks to google.com and all of the things that happen in between, by just definition, you now know a lot of information, and that just knowing that makes you eligible not only for jobs but for opportunity.
Exactly. And that's my whole thing, where my career, my life, how I do everything is really, I drive my kids crazy because I'm like, back to the basics and keep things simple. Like when my life starts getting crazy, and I had there where I had so many apps, so many texts, so many computers, so many cars, and like my life was out of control. And I'm just like, simplify. What is the simple, basic things I need to live my life? Let me do that for a month. Sort of humble, get back to basics, very simple. Same thing with eating. Like, I don't believe in complex diets. Just go back to the basics. If it has one ingredient, you eat it. Beef has one ingredient. Guess what? Processed cheese doesn't have one ingredient. broccoli, one ingredient, right?
Yep.
So you just go back to simple. And it's funny, your body, your life, and your mind can reset and readjust because we're really simple creatures. We're not meant for like everything on the internet and social media and fast-paced world is our minds are like melting down because we were not created for complexity. We were created for simplicity.
And at some point, we always end up back to the basics, back to the root of either a question or a solution or an answer. And I would imagine in some ways you might feel that way because you mentioned that you were focused on AI development. And now, 2025, everybody can't get enough of AI. And you were looking at neural networks well before they became in the mainstream. What is your reflection on where we were at then and where we're at now?
So the big reflection is, which I think people are missing to our detriment, AI, artificial intelligence, whatever discipline, whether you're talking about neural networks, machine learning, rule-based systems, artificial intelligence is about one simple thing, data sets. Mm-hmm. The better data you can give it, the more artificial the intelligence will be. It's not about the algorithms. It's not about OpenAI versus Grok 3. It's not about NVIDIA with the GPUs and $100 million. It's basically the data.
Yep.
If you give AI enough data, it will become smarter and smarter and can simulate artificial intelligence. And to me, we're in this very dangerous spot because we are sharing our entire lives online. Look at what people post on social media, public media, pictures of their family, pictures of their kids. I mean, it's insane. Why would you give that away publicly? And the more data AI has, the more we're giving it, the smarter it can be. And we're at a stage where it's scary because you watch movies from the 80s that you think are totally science fiction. And we're basically creating digital twins.
Oh, yeah.
And if we're not careful, these digital twins will be as smart and as brilliant as us and essentially can make us obsolete.
Maybe, yeah. And like we were saying, might be even better. Sometimes when I am speaking to someone, or especially like, on the line with a customer support rep, I do think about all the other things I could be doing with my time. I wish they would hurry up, like, come on, get going. And we're seeing that now, especially with things like chatbots. Chatbots are becoming better and better. Right now, there's still a little bit of a friction to work with them, but I could see a world in 10 to 15 years, maybe even sooner, where chatbots are performing at the same level as a human rep.
I mean, just pick anyone, any political figure. They have digital twins that are creating alternative content. Mm-hmm. I won't get political. I'll just sort of talk factual, but the president of the country gave a speech on Tuesday. There are clips of him giving the speech. It looks like him. I mean, there's no glitches. There's nothing except it's saying alternative information. They've already done deep fake of it. So now I have a situation where I go in to my browser and there are 3 versions of his speech.
Yeah.
One is real. It actually happened. The other 2 are alternative manipulations. And here's the problem. I'm a smart person. I work in this field. I know how to do analytics. I can't tell the difference. Exactly. And now that's scary. So now the question is, who do we believe and who is really leading when people watch this stuff? So we're in a really scary place where our laws haven't kept up. And this is the problem. If I go in the real world and I say false things about you, I go in and I say, Ron is a criminal, or Ron is this, or Ron is that, and it is not true. There's defamation laws. You can actually file civil or criminal action against me, and I could potentially either get financial fines or, depending on the severity of it, jail time for it. So I'm prohibited from doing it. Problem is, when they wrote the Constitution, I'm pretty sure, Ron, you probably agree with me on this, I don't think George Washington had an iPad. Like I wasn't there. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he didn't have an iPad and he wasn't thinking this. And the problem is our current laws don't cover it. So if I go in and I create a video of you that puts you in an incriminating situation that embarrasses you, hurts your reputation, causes issues with your family, it's not illegal. You can't do anything against it. And that's the problem today is we're in a lawless society on the internet, and it is scary, my friend.
The internet's always been one of those places. It's been a little lawless. I was telling my wife a few months ago about the lawless internet that I grew up in. Like, there was a very little censorship, very little tracking, so you could really be anonymous in a great great type of way. But now it is a little bit more surveyed, but you're right. It's still lawless because in the 2024 election, there was someone that used a deep fake of Biden, and he got fined, I think, like $5 million. And you know what he said? I'd do it again. It was worth it. Even though he's facing this punishment and could be in trouble, for some people, even if you slap them with a monetary challenge in front of them, they might say, I don't care. My mission was accomplished. I did what I felt as though was the right thing to do, even though you're violating someone's trust and their reputation.
Yeah. And the thing with that, though, that I just want to highlight is he actually was threatened with a fine. It wasn't actually levied on him.
Exactly.
So it now is in the courts, and the judge has to decide whether it's valid. And depending on what judge you get in front of, I mean, the judge might say he didn't break a law, because that's really the issue. Is you can go in and file a civil suit against him for $5 million. And you can say it was damaging. You could say it altered you could say all that stuff. But for it to see the light of day, you have to point to a law that was broken. And I don't know any laws that cover that. So yes, he was slapped with a fine, but I can't see this one going. And then even if the judge allows it, you have to convince a jury of your peers. Mm-hmm. Now, if you were sitting on that jury and you saw that this individual did that, I mean, I could see people go either way. Like, it depends on who you get on the jury. Some people might say that was perfectly okay. Others might not. So, I mean, there's just right now, he was threatened to fine, but whether it actually comes to fruition and he pays it, it's going to take 3 to 4 years. And it's really rolling dice at Vegas on which way it's going to go.
I need to jump in for a second and share some details about a special group that we've created for you, our listeners. We understand the importance of creativity in cybersecurity, and Hacker Valley has created a special Cyber Creators Mastermind. Each month, we meet and discuss how to break down technical concepts through stories, the intricacies and opportunities of using audio and video to highlight what's important in cybersecurity, and we share how you can use content to highlight the hard work that you put into your craft. You can check out the mastermind by visiting hackervalley.com/mastermind. We'd love to help unlock your creative potential and would love to see you there. One of the things I wanted to speak with you about that I don't know too much about myself, and this is getting a little political, but that's all right, because I feel like we're not necessarily giving opinion. We're more so talking about the information that's in front of us, is cyber warfare. I feel like this is one of those hot topics. We hear about it in a business perspective, but I think it's a lot deeper than that, especially having worked at the NSA as a contractor for about 4 years myself. I know that some of these capabilities that are out there were already significant from a cyber perspective, but introducing AI and having companies like Google release the restrictions of developing weapons with AI is interesting. So I'll pose the question: what is the state of cyber warfare?
So the reality is, and I don't know why people don't like talking about the truth and they don't like facing it or addressing it. The reality is, and we could go for hours, but I'll just give you facts. We are in a cyber war. We are in World War III. Whether we want to admit it, whether we're denying it, what is a war? Well, let's just get simple. A war is when countries or individuals target and attack each other trying to cause harm. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look it up in the dictionary. What is a world war? A world war is when you have 2 or more countries that blatantly disagree and get to the point where they're going to actively take action to hurt individuals, hurt the country, or prove their method until the other side surrenders and gives into what they want.
Mm.
If you look at the internet and you look at what's happening with China, Russia, North Korea, it's a war. I mean, they are actively targeting us. But most people don't realize North Korea, we spent all this time and energy sanctioning them so they can't have nuclear weapons, because that would be bad. Like if North Korea had ballistic nuclear weapons and we saw them trying to test weapons and them exploding, that was all a smokescreen. Because guess what? They have cyber nuclear weapons, but most people don't realize this. The North Korean economy is based off of hacking U.S. companies, individuals. It's estimated last year that North Korea made $2.3 billion on hacking U.S. citizens, hacking U.S. companies. Most people don't realize a lot of the ransomware attacks hitting companies, North Korea. A lot of the cybercrime and draining people's accounts slowly is all North Korea. 2.3 billion, that is the revenue of some small countries. I mean, that could support North Korea for a long time. That is warfare, right? We're calling it ransomware. We're calling it attacks. No, it is warfare that they are launching against the United States, causing harm and damage to us. And we just are not waking up. I mean, the fact that, and I hate that I have to do this, when I work with most companies that are hit with ransomware, from a business standpoint, I have to put my business hat on because these companies need to stay in business and make money. From a business standpoint, 95% of the time, the best business decision, and I hate to say it, the best business decision is to pay the ransom, because these are commercialized companies. Mm-hmm. They're very, I hate to say this, they're very reliable. I mean, Russian Business Network, which is one of the other large ransomware providers, they have a help desk and they have a money back guarantee. If you pay the ransom and you don't get your data back, they refund your money, because they want to be reputable and they want to be known that, okay, if you pay, you get your data, so it's a good investment. And most companies, if they lose their data, a hospital, unfortunately, if they lose their data, they have two options. They can pay $3 million, or they can be down for 2 to 3 weeks, not be able to treat patients, and lose $20 million. So from a business standpoint, which one unfortunately makes sense? I'm one that I do prefer to work with our clients so they have proper infrastructure, proactive, so you can recover without paying ransom. But if you don't involve security professionals until after the fact, the unfortunate reality, which sucks, it's awful, is paying the ransom is less on your balance sheet than actually fighting it, rebuilding, and going from scratch. That's warfare. I mean, we are in war, and here's the problem. You're in a completely different mindset when you're in war. You're thinking differently, you're acting differently, you're paranoid, you're concerned. The problem we have in the United States, because nobody will face the fact that we're at war, companies and individuals and even the government, we have peacetime mentality. We're acting and behaving like we trust people. When links come in and people click on it, that's peacetime mentality. But the reality is, if we knew we were at war and we had wartime mentality and a link came in, we wouldn't even think of clicking it. I mean, there's no way of clicking it. Somebody going in peacetime mentality and saying, let's take a critical server that controls the oil and gas pipeline for the East Coast and let's connect it to the internet because it's easier and simpler. Peacetime mentality, you do that. Wartime mentality, you would never in a million years do that. I mean, from 2023 to 2024, the amount of cybercrime or cyber warfare hurting America doubled, and they're predicting it's going to quadruple in 2025. The problem is getting worse, not better, but we're still approaching it from a peacetime mentality.
You know, I'll be honest, I don't have the wartime mentality either. There's times where I'm definitely kicking back and taking it easy, not reading things too closely. I think it brings a little bit of sanity to our lives. Thinking back into 2021, 2001, during the September 11th attacks, everyone was on high alert. Like, they would show pictures of people who were allegedly terrorists. And I remember my own mother going around calling in the hotline numbers because she saw someone that looked seemingly like this person, but she wasn't sure. She wasn't sure, but she was scared and she didn't want the same thing to happen again. And you're totally right. When someone is hit by ransomware, they don't feel that to their core like September 11, 2001 brought us. It's a different feeling. It's more of like oh, who's the dummy? All right, you made the company lose 35 million out of our billions of dollars of revenue.
9/11 impacted everyone. Everyone in this country felt like, okay, that could have been me on an airplane.
Exactly.
It touched every one of us, and we felt the real threat that it could happen. The problem now is we're not socializing this enough. Like the fact that people are losing money out of their bank accounts, ransomware, we're not socializing, so people don't feel that it could impact them like it did 9/11. We're not getting that same impact. But the reality is, and I'm not trying to downplay in any way, shape, or form, but if you look at the cyber crime, the cyber war, the amount of loss of lives and the amount of monetary damage was greater than what we lost in 9/11. And I'm not trying to downplay it in any way, shape, or form, but the impact is larger, but because it's slower and it's spread out. 9/11 happened on a single day within 2 hours. High impact. Imagine taking the loss of life and the damage of 9/11, but spreading it out over 12 months. You're numb to it. You don't feel it as much. You don't feel that impact as great when it's done over a longer period of time. But the same thing is happening again. We're just not waking up and realizing it. And like the simple example I give to friends and family members is, why in the world are you posting pictures of your children on public social media where any creep, criminal can see it, target them, and go after them? We say we care about our children and we love our children. Why in the world are our social media sites not private? Why are we only sharing that with a few? I mean, posting pictures of your child's life for 12 years, think of the impact that has. But we're just not thinking wartime mentality. So we're thinking it's perfectly okay to make our children and our family's life totally public. And it's insane the long-term damage that could have.
Oh, I have mixed feelings about this because I totally understand and appreciate the perspective of you got to be careful, especially you never really understand what you're consenting to. I was just speaking to someone recently about all of the facial recognition at the airport. I was like, how does this work? And they were saying it's a zero proof piece of information. You send information to a centralized server. It gives you back information saying that, yes, this is Ron, or maybe you want to ask this person to take their glasses off and take a closer look at them. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. I was like, I never agreed to that. And they're like, yeah, you did. All of the airline terms of service, you agreed to that a long, long time ago. And I think it's the same thing with our kids. Like, we want to make sure our family is able to see them because maybe the extended family, we don't have their numbers. They might live in a different city, state, or country. And it's like, I want my family to see my family as well. But when you boil it down, you never know how someone's using that information, whether you agreed to it, especially if you agreed to it or not.
Yeah. And yeah, two things with that. One is, great. I don't know about you, but I have about 15 people in my family, and I maybe have about 40 friends. Now, let's say I'm a little weird. So call it 100. You have a big family, 100 people. Why don't you set up a private account and share it with the 100 people? Why are you letting millions upon millions of total strangers, any in the world, see that? It's like, so I'm not telling you, this is where I'm different than most folks. I'm not saying go Amish. Trust me. There's days, my friend Ron, you were asking me like how my day was going. There's some days where I sit in my car and I seriously contemplate driving to Pennsylvania, buying a farm and being Amish. Because guess what? I mean, think about how beautiful it would be at night to sit with a candle and a book and not have your cell phone, not have texting, not have social media. But maybe I'm crazy, But I'm like, that sounds like an amazing life. Now, I'm sure after a while I'd get bored because I miss helping people. So I wouldn't do that. But the point is, I'm not saying go Amish, but I'm saying there's a middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
There's a balance that we're missing here. We don't have to go to the extreme where we post every detail of our life publicly for everybody to see. There's a balance. Limit what you post, limit who sees it, limit what goes out there. And we've lost that balance and we're just so one-sided.
You know, I agree that you should definitely limit, especially when it comes to your kids. You definitely want to limit their exposure to being online in general, whether it's their face being online or them being online, because the advertisement is ridiculous. I'm on Instagram. I'll probably go on Instagram later and it will show me your book. Like, hey, you need to now buy Dr. Eric Cole's book and also become a customer of his company. And it's interesting to see all of the advertisement. I think that this is one of the reasons why the United States government is so on edge about TikTok, is because we don't have control over it. They could insert advertisement, messaging, and ultimately program the minds of the adults, but especially the youth as well.
So can Facebook. So can Twitter. So okay. And I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
So we're concerned about the Chinese influencing us. But we're okay with Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg influencing us and biasing us. And once again, this is factual. I'm not. I mean, I always be careful. As we need to be able to talk about politics in a non-political way, but this is factual. In October of 2024, so month before the election, if you went into Facebook and you put a post that said, Donald Trump is the best president we've ever had, and he will make this country great again, you got flagged in Facebook. That post was not allowed. Mark Zuckerberg admitted to it. I did the test, but he admits to it now. But if you change two words, you changed Donald Trump to Kamala Harris, and you said Kamala Harris is the best president, she will make this country great again, it was allowed. So these platforms in the U.S. are biasing us.
Oh yeah,
is that okay? No, but so it's not the Chinese. I mean, to me, the solution is not banning a country, but regulating. Where's the regulation around TikTok, Facebook, and all these others? Because they're influencing us. They're influencing our kids.
But it's so addicting to be online, and I think that one of the addictions that I currently suffer from is artificial intelligence, using LLM after LLM, trying to solve problems that an LLM probably doesn't necessarily need to solve, but it would be really cool if it solved it without knowing all of the steps of the solution, and it kind of was able to figure out where to go from here. You know, how are you looking at AI today, like, especially considering your background, and are you seeing it apply in any special or detriment ways for you in your life?
So I basically spend an hour or two a night brainstorming with my digital twin. So I loaded in and created a digital twin that thinks and acts like me. And now I go in and I ask it questions. I go, listen, I know in the past I've hired some bad marketing firms, and I need a marketing firm now that does this, this, and this, but I don't want to make that same mistake. Can you tell me what were the 3 reasons why I hired bad firms in the past and what I can do to avoid that from happening in the future? And it comes back and it tells me. And then it says, would you like us to create a 30-day plan to interview, hire, and buy a marketing firm that will actually help you? And I go, yes. And it basically produces an action plan, a massive action plan. And all I do is follow the steps now. So it's like, it's crazy where we're doing it now. I'm keeping that to myself, and it is controlled by Eric. So it's an augmentation to me. It's not a replacement.
Right.
If we use it as an augmentation tool and it maintains our identity, I think AI could be super powerful. But if it gets to the point now where you're losing the identity of people and it's now just putting an engine, and now it's not Eric Cole that I'm asking for help, it's OpenAI. It's not Elon Musk I'm asking for help, I'm asking for Grok 3. It's basically making humans obsolete, which scares and terrifies me.
RIP Stack Overflow. I mean, there's so many talented developers out there that offer so much help guidance and wisdom that I used to think and, like and upvote their stuff, they would get that adrenaline hit or that dopamine rush. But now it's all sent to OpenAI. I use tools like Cursor and GitHub Copilot to now do all of my programming for me, but it's really on the heels and on the backs of someone's blood, sweat, and tears. So big shout outs to them, and thank you to everybody that's Stack Overflow contributor. But Eric, I did want to ask you a very important question. You have such an eclectic range of skills and an eclectic range of experiences. There's a lot of people that are that watch and listen to this show, and they are always curious about, like, how do I become a little bit more like this person? How could I, write books, get paid for speaking engagements, have so much information that I need a marketing agency to help dispense it in an effective way. If you were to start your career over from day one, what would be your first move?
My first move would be to invest a lot more in personal development, emotional intelligence, communication, because what hurt me in my career is I was the brilliant geek. I mean, that's what I was labeled as. I mean, that's what I was known as in school. The geeky guy. If you want to solve any problem, go to Eric. Math and science was my thing. You give me a computer and I'm in my happy place. I'd rather, program and write code than go out to parties. Like people go, what do you do for fun? And I'm like, oh, I create new software companies or I program. They're like, no, Eric, what do you do for fun? I'm like, that's fun. Like, so I didn't really have a lot of social skills. So I would come into meetings and I didn't realize people don't think like me. People don't act like me. And I would go in and I would be like, well, of course this is obvious. Like, well, what are you, stupid? You don't understand these things. And like, I hurt my career because I was known as the brilliant troublemaker that couldn't talk in social settings. So I would step back and spend a lot more time, which I've done in my last 10 years and sort of has changed my life, is focus a lot more on how can I be a better human? How can I have better friends? How can I communicate better? How can I sort of like win friends and influence people and really communicate and socialize? Because here's the reality. If you can get along with people, if you can read other people, and you can think and switch, instead of me going into a conversation going, what do I want? And how am I thinking? What if I went to the conversation going, how is Ron thinking? Like what is Ron doing? What is Ron feeling right now? And to me, one of the things, like when I'm in any business situation or any conversations, and we sort of did this a little in the call, you did it very well. You're sort of like, Eric, how you feeling today? Like where are you at? What's sort of your tone and message? And if we just did that, where we went into meetings and I just said, hey, I'm having a tough day. I got some not so favorable news. I'm a little angry. I'm a little frustrated. You would probably have a little more compassion and approach it differently than if I'm like, oh, I'm in a super happy mood. I'm in a pump mood. Yeah. I'm ready to go crazy and stuff. Or even the same thing. If me and you are business partners and you want to give me a new business idea to grow and expand the company, and you come to me on a day where I'm like, okay, we lost too much money. I'm in scarcity. I'm afraid the company's going out of business. I'm going to shut you down so quick. And you're going to be like, what's wrong with him? But then 3 days later, we just won 3 big contracts. We just got an award. Our customers love us. And I'm ready to run through walls and go crazy. And you now come to me with that idea, I'd be like, yeah, let's get started tomorrow. Same idea, but you just did timing. Okay. So to me, I'm a big fan of everything is meant to happen. You just have to time it correctly. And only by understanding and connecting with humans and having compassion and emotional intelligence to understand where they're at, it would solve so many problems. If I went in and I only focused on money and I forced the deal, and it wasn't what they needed right now because they didn't need it, but I forced the deal, they would be very unhappy. They would be like, okay, Secure Anchor does okay services, but they're not that good. And they wouldn't call us again. Mm-hmm. But if I go in and I wait for the right timing, they weren't ready to buy today. So I'm not forcing it. They needed consultation. So I gave it to them for free. And they walk out of that meeting going, Eric changed my life. Eric gave me information that's probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and he didn't charge me a penny. Imagine what he would give me if I paid him $100K. And now guess what? It always happens. A week, a month, a quarter later, They always call me for the business, and now they're customers for life. So I'm not rushing the sale. I know the sale will happen, but instead of forcing a bad deal and getting a frustrated customer, I give them what they need. I give them what they want, and I close the deal in 3 or 4 months. And now I have their business for the next 10 years.
Powerful. I love that. There's 2 quotes that come to mind through all of this. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your questions. And the other one is diagnosis without assessment is malpractice. You got to understand where someone's at. Whenever I call someone, I always try to ask, is this a good time to chat? Just giving them that space is going to, allow for a much more productive conversation. I love that.
The best way to get what you want is to give other people what they want.
Damn. That's what I'm talking about. Yes. If there was anything that you learned from this entire conversation, it is that. I really had a good time chatting. Eric, I hope that I'm wishing you the best. I'm wishing you the best on this journey of understanding how we can protect oneself better, and also companies out there, the American people and people at large better, and also the growth and self-development journey that you're on. I'm definitely curious about this AI bot. But for anyone that wants to stay up to date with Dr. Eric Cole, be sure to check out the show notes or description wherever you're listening or watching. Eric has a host of books that I'll drop the links in to the show notes for everyone to check out and hopefully purchase a few copies. And wanted to say thank you again, Eric. And with that, we will see everyone next time.